The podcast you're about to listen to, Focused on Forward, was created on Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First off, it's free. Free is always amazing. Secondly, there's a creation tool that's going to allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone, tablet, or computer. Anchor is going to take that podcast and going to distribute it for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and so many other platforms. And you get to make money from your podcast right away with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one convenient place. So how do you find it and use it? Well, go to your app store, download the free Anchor app, or go to anchor.fm to get started. You too can make a podcast. You can do it with Anchor. Welcome to Focused on Forward. The purpose of this podcast is to focus on recovery from life situations. Be it a disease, chronic or acute, perhaps the loss of someone so dear to you in death, or a change of life patterns that has affected you so profoundly that you have no choice but to find your new normal and become focused on moving forward. Each episode is designed to show the positivity that people bring to each and every one of their stories, the successes they've had, ways that they have become so definitively focused on moving forward. We look forward to sharing their stories, and we hope that they inspire you just as much as they have inspired us. Thanks for listening, and enjoy the show. Good afternoon, and welcome to Focused on Forward. I have the pleasure today of speaking with Wil Wilson, and Wil is a really cool guy that I've recently had the pleasure of getting to know a little bit, and excited to hear his story. Now, Wil is an up-and-coming actor. He comes out of the great state of Oklahoma, and he's got a kind of a cool story of some challenges and some life lessons that he's learned. And so we're excited to hear Wil's story and see what not only he's learned out of his life, but how we can take that and make some use out of the cool things that he has to tell us today. So, Wil, thank you for being on the show, and we look forward to your story.
Tim, it's great to be here, man. Great to spend time with you, sharing stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's one of my favorite pastimes.
Excellent. So, whenever you're ready, go ahead and tell us the story of Wil Wilson.
Well, it was a cold, dreary day in Lower East Side, London, England. No, I'm joking. I don't. I was born in a hospital in Perry, Iowa, for crying out loud. And why? There wasn't a whole lot to tell about my youth, except that it was free range mostly. My dad was a truck driver, and we moved around all the time. We ended up, I think it wasn't until my high school years really that I was spent more than 3 years in the same place. More than 2 years, I believe, in the same place. And so growing up, moving around a lot, I wasn't really feeling too secure about my surroundings, and having to change geographic locations, cultures, heck, sometimes languages, some places I was at. I never really picked any of them up very much because, I'm lazy-minded. At least I was back then. But it was interesting. We were poor, didn't have a whole lot of money. Dad, he was a pretty good dad when he was around. We weren't around very much. Mom, she had her challenges, and that led to other challenges. And as a result, it led to me having a sharp disagreement with my stepfather, my mother's husband, when I was 15. And I ended up, he and I got into some fisticuffs, and I left the house that day. I was 15 years old, left the house that day and never went back. Went out on my own, and went to school full time. Had 2 jobs after school, before school, football practice. I was an athlete. I was going to play college ball, but my coach and I got into a altercation as well because he accused me of using steroids. And I remember I was so mad. I'm like, I'm poor as all get out. I work 2 jobs. I go to school. I pay rent. I take care of myself, and you're telling me I'm buying steroids. I, quite honestly, at what was I, 17, 18, I didn't even know what the hell steroids were really. I was just always working. I worked all the time. I got my first job after school at 12 years old, baling hay, throwing bales heavier than I was. I went from this pretty solid, stringy kid to this really solid, muscledy kid over course of a couple of summers. Actually, that one summer I got pretty big pretty fast. So things started changing for me. People started taking notice. My attitude wasn't the best, so older fellows I hung out with take it as a challenge with some of my responses, the way I spoke to them. So needless to say, I didn't really have much of a father figure, so I spent a lot of my time hanging around with the old timers, the farmers and ranchers. We either hang out at the bars my mom worked at as a barmaid, and I'd play poker with the old timers. The old farmers, retired farmers, just sitting down there playing poker, maybe throwing their pennies or nickels and their quarters in the pot. And before long, I was sitting down with them there, teaching me how to play poker. And after a short while, I started winning all the time, so they quit letting me play. So I didn't get to play poker.
They want you taking their loot.
Right. But I guess it helped my mom with tips having me there, because I kept the guys engaged and kept them laughing. And I just liked sitting at the feet of the old timers, listening to their stories. I didn't really have much direction, so I would just stylize my own upbringing to that. And my mom wasn't really bringing me up very well, and my dad was never around, so it was basically on my own, looking for any father figure I could find. Didn't take me long to realize, though, there wasn't a whole lot to choose from out there. So I just left that alone and started doing my own thing. And ended up, instead of going to college and playing football because of the altercation with my coach, I ended up going to the Army. I spent a couple of years of a 4-year stint in there. I got asked to leave a little bit early because I had this propensity to get into fights when I went anywhere. So my chip on my shoulder still hadn't been knocked off at that point. And after a couple of years, got out of the Army and inadvertently started a family, had a daughter with my high school sweetheart. And her and I had a tempestuous relationship. She wasn't the most reliable person, and quite honestly, I probably wasn't either back then either. I was a pretty big mess myself. I didn't get much of a childhood, so I spent a lot of my time just doing whatever the hell I wanted. It usually involved drinking. So I was drinking and being stupid. And but my daughter in her mother's care got injured. I tried getting custody and couldn't. Little did I know was that I was saddled with the stigma of being male at that point in time in the judicial history of America. And it was frowned upon for single fathers to be around. And I don't know, it just didn't go well. And so I spent, I don't know, from that moment on, moving around a lot myself, becoming a gypsy of my own. When I got out of the Army, I just bounced around and ended up settling in Oklahoma. And I've been in Oklahoma since, I think, the fall of 92 or 93, one of the two. It's been a minute. And haven't left, fell in love with some great people here. And it's centrally located in the U.S., so if I want to take a trip anywhere, it's a nice little road trip. Cali, Washington State, Florida, wherever, almost the same distance. Or flying if I want to fly anywhere, or take a bus, man. I can just hop on a plane to New York and be back following Monday, Just did my thing. But during that time, man, I had times where I was homeless, jobless, and homeless. Go without eating for a long time. Never really having anybody to fall back on, nobody I can call on. I've always been pretty self-reliant. There's been some difficult times I've gotten through solely because of friends I've gained through life. I've got A lot of people say they have a lot of friends, and I can't honestly say that. I hold my stable of friends down to probably less than a handful. And if I was able to lay them all out, I'm just real um, particular about who I pull in close because I've been hurt so much in my life. People I've trusted abusing that trust. Between a mom that would let her husband abuse my siblings and I, or abuse her, or whatever, or a dad that was never around, or get into a fight every time I turned around and get into trouble with the law. Funny thing was, every time I got in trouble with the law, I wasn't doing really anything wrong. I was defending myself or somebody else. I was just too good at it. It got me into trouble.
Yeah, I get that, and I understand about keeping a low count of friends. I think with anybody who has had experience of um, loss of friends or family members, whether it's by uh, illness, or if it's in the case what you're describing where there's something that causes that separation. I think it's harder to allow people in. And speaking from my own case, I have a lot of associates, but I have a few that I think I consider my close friends, people that I could feel like I could tell anything, or that I could trust implicitly. And I think that's because there's and as I told my wife years ago, that I'm not a very trusting person. It takes a while for me to be able to trust
Right.
somebody because of life scenarios.
Right. Absolutely. Well, during all this stuff, I would lose myself in movies. I would go to the theater by myself. I'd just get in front of the television, pick a program, some programming that I would write down my genre or my theme for the time, and I'd just dive into it. And I wouldn't watch movies like I noticed other people watch movies. Like, oh, that's funny. I would watch movies and try to figure out where that actor drew that line from and how they were delivering it in that manner. I mean, where do you draw that from? Where do you put that? How do you put that? I wonder about what was the conversation him and the director had, or she and the director had just before that scene. How many times do you have to take that scene? Because I don't know, like, I was always dissecting movie roles just because, um, there are characters on the screen that inspired me. John Wayne, Charlie Bronson, Clint Eastwood, um, uh, oh my gosh, Gene Hackman, great actors in their own right, great
Yeah,
talent.
phenomenal.
And I'm watching these guys work, and I'm like, then all of a sudden Al Pacino comes along and see The Godfather, and I'm like, holy crap, and Robert De Niro, all these guys that just iconic for their time, and their start out in movies really isn't dissimilar to anybody else that started out in movies. They just had a dynamic, focused impact, and I thought, well, why can't I do that? I'm from Iowa, and why can't I tell a story? Why can't I become a master storyteller like these guys? I want to be able to tell stories that inspire people to, keep picking themselves up, dusting themselves off, and moving forward. That's basically all I did every day. I'd get up every morning and feel like, it's me versus the world, not in a negative way, but all right, one more day of this. Let's see what we can get out of it today, and always finding that one thing that keeps um, the bellows burning, I should say, keeps the fire in the belly going. And it's gotten to the point now where it's habit. I'm, facing adversity of on any level, it just makes me dig in. It doesn't make me even think about sitting down, resting, giving up, or whatever. So I've got stuff to do. I've got places to go, and I've got stories to tell. And so my motto has always been, even from a young age, even before I joined the Army and figured out where this motto came from, keep moving forward. It's a Ranger motto. Keep moving forward, and Rangers lead the way. You know,
Yep. Yeah, I've heard
I
that
signed
before.
the Airborne Ranger option, and I was tapped to go there, and then they changed cycles around, and promised me my cycle would come through, and they lied to me, which contributed directly to my bad attitude in the Army. Because I signed up for something specific, and you guys lie to me, and well, my attitude's going to turn south.
Right.
challenged
Well,
my
you were already
COs, I challenged my NCOs, challenged my platoon leaders. I was quite challenging. I never had a problem with confrontation. My problem was probably multiplied by the fact that I did choose to trust, and this is what my trust got me, and I was pretty upset. So I didn't handle myself the best. I wasn't very nice. I didn't take direction very well. I was an outstanding soldier on paper, but when it came to taking direction from some of these guys, I was like, I don't think so, Sergeant. So it just wasn't good. It wasn't a good mix. But
okay.
the experience, I've carried it with me for a lifetime. Had met some great people, um, great contacts. Lost touch with all of those over the years, but I still build relationships with people to this day. And Armor, on my last film I was on out of exile, Matt Moulton, he's a former Tier 1 operator, and we got to talking shop. And he's from just after the time I was in and out, and just hearing his stories. I mean, he just recently, over the past few years, retired himself from that type of living, and just listening to his stories just brings back memories, and we hit it off. I mean, there's a brotherhood there, no matter what walk of life you come from or branch of service you're in. There's something there. Everybody's adversity. Everybody's got their own story. Everybody's got their own challenges. Everybody's got their own successes. Everybody's got their own failures. Yet they all carry the same theme, man. We pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, set our teeth, and just keep moving forward. And
Yeah.
so, one thing that I've been fortunate, I guess, in that regard in my development as a human being is that I won't be told what I can't do. I'll decide what I can and can't do. And by God, it's been a winning formula ever since. I just have fun. But through, and this is just a light glazing over everything. And we, at some point, in the future, we ever talk more, I'll probably get a little bit more detail on some of these stories. But yeah, it was a pretty rough growing up, not having any money, being ashamed of being on food stamps, wanting to get a job at a young age because I was so ashamed of it, and working my fingers to the bone, coming home exhausted. I remember coming home. I go to work before school, sometimes work and hunting. I go to work before school, go to school, go to work before school, and then I work out before school, at school, and then I go to school. Then I work out after school, then I go to work, my job, work out after school, do my football practice, then do my job, then come home and sleep. I, I wore a groove in the couch, man. It's just like a well-shaped groove in that couch. I just inserted myself in between the back cushion and the seat cushion and just wedged myself in there and made sure my head was in tight so I didn't hear anything, I didn't see anything, and I was out. I was like a snoring log there for however long they could put up with me laying on the couches. I was tired. I didn't know what it was not to be tired, I guess, most of my life as a result, because I've always been busy.
So, well, let me ask you this. So you've gone through all these separate events in life. They're all kind of interwoven. Clearly, there's some things that tie them all together. But where was the turning point for you? Because there has to be a turning point in everybody's story where they go, you know what, I want to do this differently. Now, you talked about going to the movies and seeing all these things. When did you get to the turning point where you said, this is how I'm going to make this a reality?
Well, that's a great question, Tim. I'd be happy to answer it. So going through this, I, got married, had a child, divorced. I ended up being married and divorced several times because I wanted to be that father figure, the dad. I wanted to be the nuclear family. I'm in a nuclear family. I'll be able to have a normal life. Well, I wasn't thinking too clearly back then, apparently, because that's not what makes normal life. getting to know yourself and giving to your surroundings and giving to people in your lives that helps make a life. You don't have to be married to have kids, but I'm glad that I did. You know, it was great experiences. I've got wonderful children as a result of it. But I wanted to raise my families first because I did end up meeting people in the movie industry and talking to them about what it takes and the work and the effort, the time, money. And I just honestly didn't have the time or the money to focus on it or anything like that. So I just waited and waited and waited and waited until my kids were grown. And now they're to a point where I've got a senior and a junior in high school. They're pretty self-sufficient. They're excited about Dad's movie career because Dad's been doing it for 4 years. And so I guess the turning point for me was when my kids got to the point where they were fairly self-sufficient. I get them the raising that I thought they needed. I decided to go out on this little venture, and I'll tell you, I took my first acting class at the Actor Factory like 4 years ago, probably around this time 4 years ago, if I remember right, and it was acting for the camera, I believe, with Daryl Cox at the Actor Factory. I'll tell you, I was so inspired, having so much fun. I was sitting here with real working actors doing some acting classes. I was learning some technique. I was learning some um, terms for behind the camera, in front of the camera, technical terms, crew terms. I was just having fun. I was, doing a scene study every week, at least one scene study, sometimes 2 or 3 scene studies a week. Then I did my first audition, and I guess what helped, I guess, I don't let my fire get dampened, but it can be from time to time. It's just weird to me because every audition I had for like, I don't know, 3 or 4 auditions, I nailed it and I got the job. And I kept being told, like, nobody does that. You don't get every one. And I'm like, well, I'm really having fun and I hope this lasts. And it didn't last long, but by God, that little streak sure did feel good, you know? And,
Sure.
um, but I ended up getting more and more work, and I got an agent almost right away. I was being told by casting directors and other actors, directors, and producers, hey, you've got a look and you've got a delivery that nobody else has. So, and you're right in that niche. And I'm like, oh my God, I want to strike while the iron's hot. I'm just doing
Absolutely.
everything
Yeah.
I can to make a positive impression because ultimately I got into this because I want people to I want to be able to send a message to people through my storytelling about just the indomitable human spirit. There's a poem called Invictus. I can't remember the poet's name, but it's a very powerful poem about the challenges that a man, woman, person can face in their lives. And they can choose a path of defeat, or they can choose to be the indomitable spirit that God Himself ordained us with. I mean, we need to own that, not be victims and not be defeated. Even if we lose the battle, it doesn't mean the war's over. You just pick yourself up, go to the next battle. So I've had a lot of disappointments in my life. Most of my disappointments in my life come from my own actions. So that's obviously something I can learn from. But I've had a lot of triumphs in my life due to those disappointments in my life too. I mean, I wouldn't be here today. Man, there was a point in time in my life I thought there's no way I was going to live past 23. None. There's no way. And I come back from the Army and walk through the grocery store and somebody saw me and it looked like they saw a ghost. And I asked them what was going on. She's my mom's best friend. And she's like, well, I heard you were dead. I'm like, well, holy crap. What'd I do? So
Yeah.
I was a pretty wild one. But yeah, I thought I was going to be dead at 23. And here I am, father of 4, married more than once over. Finally got it right with the last ex-wife. Her and I literally raised our kids apart but together. She's a good woman, great mom. She's wonderful to her kids and lets nothing stand in the way of that, which is amazing because she's got some challenges of her own in her life. We help each
Okay.
other out.
Good.
And but this this whole change to get into the movies, I something I've always wanted to do. So I finally found that niche, that opportunity. And my last wife, we got together. I said, listen, I really want to do this thing. How do you feel about this? Because I'm telling you right now, it's going to be time consuming. It's going to be energy consuming. It's going to mess with us a little bit. She's like, oh, we'll do it. So had a lot of support up front, but that brought its own challenges. I'd never juggled this type of career path, plus a career, plus a family, and a new marriage and kids at the same time. So needless to say, I dropped the juggle balls quite a few times, and ended up losing that marriage. I mean, that marriage ended up being dissolved, and learned from that one. So I've learned from everything that I've done, good or bad, and I think that I've accumulated enough wisdom and knowledge not to repeat most of it. But I just want to be able to tell stories, man, tell great stories that inspire people, and help people connect with their own indomitable human nature, that one indefatigable part of them that won't ever be defeated. Doesn't matter how many times it's beaten. Doesn't matter how many times something's dropped on it. Doesn't matter how many times it's stumbled and fallen. Just gets up, moves forward. And I've seen that in action through myself and many other people in my life. You'd be amazed at how much damage a human spirit, let alone a human body, can take and still keep performing.
No, great. I like that. Okay. So now you mentioned earlier that, there was some issues in your youth and you called yourself a free range youth, that there was a lack of a father figure. Now, growing up and becoming a father yourself, how did that affect your parenting? Your desire to be a father?
Well, I'll tell you, that's a great question. I wanted to be. I'm not saying my dad wasn't a good dad. He was a great person. He just wasn't available all the time. So my relationship with my dad was more like buds than father and son. When I got older, of legal age, hangout age, I'm the only one of his kids that my dad would go and have a drink with because I was the only one that he felt he could trust to be around him, which was an honor to me. But I mean, I would have rather had, times throwing a football or, going to a football game together or whatever. But with my kids, man, I brought my kids up I would never discipline them out of anger ever. Because I caught so many backhands, I caught so many wires, so many whatever could be reached at and thrown at me. I caught so many of those. That torqued me off as a kid. What the hell, man? I'm a kid.
Understood.
But I didn't want to do that to my kids, and I also didn't want to, lose my temper around my kids. So I made it a point not to lose my temper around my kids. If they ever did need discipline, I'd always talk to them like an adult. I would never talk to my children like they were children. And I only had, as a result of my parenting style, I only had to spank my youngest son. I had to spank my oldest son once, my oldest daughter never, my youngest son twice, and my youngest daughter once. And each discipline moment, we sat down and talked about it before the discipline took place, and asked them what brought them there, what they were thinking, or what was on their mind, moving forward, what were they going to like. I mean, we just talked about it. And so listen, I got to make sure this lesson sticks. I'm going to do some physical reinforcement. So they got their spankings, but we sat down right afterwards, and after they calmed down, I'd hug them and tell them I love them. I don't want anything to come between that. So I believe in discipline because, God himself says we're charged with it. We need to keep our kids on the path. I don't look at my life as religious at all. I'm a spiritual person, and I teach my kids to be spiritual. And spirituality to me is all about human connectivity and walking around trying to connect with people at a heart-to-heart level instead of simply intellectual. Because we get to intellectual, we're quick as human beings to go to the surfacey acquaintance type friendship or discussion. Nobody wants to get deep. They don't want to say the harsh things or the hard things or the difficult things. And as a matter of fact, script a film I'm on now, Second Chances, Rick Galvin film. He there's the character I'm playing has a pretty similar outlook, and he's about vibes, man. You can't fake a vibe. I mean, you can't fake the truth when you pick up a vibe from somebody.
Oh, it's true.
So you either feel it or you don't.
That's true.
And so just fall back on those vibes. And my intuition grew as I was growing too. I mean, I'm a pretty intuitive person, but I had to put that to the test a lot of times because I was on my own. I didn't have anybody to rely on. A lot of people trying to take advantage of me. I would literally put myself in situations where I was just working all the time just to avoid staying out of trouble because by God, I would find it or it would find me. I just wrong place, wrong time. But
Understood.
yeah, I've had some challenging moments, but and there were times that I thought some of the harshest, worst things about myself, only to find out that something else in the back of my head has been lying to me. And it's true. Anytime you hear that coming out of the back of your head, it's not you. That's not your spirit talking. I mean,
That's your spirit of self-doubt. That's what that is.
That's not the way we're built. We're built to overcome. I mean, there's a reason that our bodies improve with work. There's a reason that our minds improve with exercise. We're supposed to be challenged. We're supposed to, so all those moments of squirming, itching, preening doubt that's scratched at me in my lifetime has gotten rebuffed in a major way, either by being ignored, viciously ignored, or by being viciously confronted by my true self, which is it's indomitable. You can't stop this, and it goes where I choose to go. And right now, I choose to go to the place where I can tell stories and make people happy, and trying to bring humanity together through some of the storylines that we have coming out. Because human history is fixing to change, ladies and gentlemen. The history that we know and love and think is true to this day, over the past 100 and probably 20 years, is vastly different from the actual history that we've been subjected to, that we're not being told about. There's a lot more opportunity to tell a lot more stories now. And once these stories come to light and the truth is shed on all the hidden things that have been going on in our government, our country, other governments, other countries around the world, there's going to be a huge shift in storytelling. There's going to be a major need for good storytellers. This is, like I said, this is the beginning of a great journey. I've only been doing this for 4 years. This is the 4th year now, I believe. And I've had a blast, and it's been improving every day since. Because you never say quit, never say die. Get the opportunity to work with awesome people. Having the opportunity, not feeding my creative side my whole life, except for those little moments I could find, those hour and a half, 2 hour sections of time in my life where I could watch a movie. I was there with the creatives in there. I was there with the director. I was there with the producers. I was there with the actor, the script supervisor, the acting coach. I was there with those guys, and we sat and we discussed those scenes and we discussed those movies, and now I can do that live with other creatives. I didn't know what that was about. I thought, nah, surely. I mean, I'm not one of those softy, whatever, dramatic arts persons. I'm a real rugged individual, but I like art. I like the creativity of it, So I had to reconcile myself with that. I was like, all right, can I be this hard, around the edges, rough guy I've always been, and still be a softy, in touch actor? And by God, I guess I can.
Absolutely, you can. Yeah.
took me till I was 48 years old, before I could reconcile with that. But I'm having a blast doing it, man.
That's cool.
So that was it. I had great material to work with. I had great kids. My last ex-wife, that I had the 2 children with, Hunter and Sierra, the woman stepped up big time, and she 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 has called me once. I'll tell you the story. She'd called me one time. And my son at this point, he's my youngest son. He's a big boy. He's 6'2", 200 plus pounds, and he's pretty solid. Um, he had just turned 16, and I had warned him like when he was 14. I was like, listen, I see something coming. So you find yourself in a situation where dad's got to confront you. I'm going to encourage you right now to back down when it happens, because I will not take it easy on you. I'm going to tell you right now, you're nothing to mess with, and I'm not anybody to mess with. I'm not going to take you down nice. So if we get to that point, please listen to me. Well, it came to that point one day, where the boy challenges his dad. He wasn't so much challenging his father as he was challenging his mother and his sister. And this reflects kind of bad on him, but I think part of that's perspective too, because he was young, he was attitudinal because his mom told him he couldn't mess with his iPad any longer. He was grounded from his iPad because his grades were really bad.
Oh, okay, sure.
He copped an attitude with her and his sister, and they're not very big ladies. And he didn't like overtly threaten them, but it made his mom feel uncomfortable enough that she felt she needed to call me. And so I called her back when I got the message, and I said, "Is everything okay?" She's like, "Well, I don't know what's wrong with our son, but he's not acting like our son." I'm like, "Well, let me talk to him." And she's like, "Well, he won't get on the phone. He's scared to come on the phone." I says, "Well, go ahead and hold the phone up, and I'll talk to him." She held the phone up. I said, "Son, this is the deal. You can get on the phone now and talk to Dad, like the young adult that I'd like you to be acting as right now, or you can be a child and I'll treat you like a child. And when I get there, without talking to you, I'll just lay into you. We'll take care of that up front, and then we'll talk. So how do you want to do this?" And he was like, "Well, okay." He comes to the phone and we talked. And I ended up
I'll get
not
on the
having
phone
to come
now.
over.
Yeah.
I ended up not having to come over. His mom was going to then. He needed to understand that he's there to protect his mom and his sister. And he lost sight of that because I guess he was having issues with his girlfriend that nobody really knew anything about. So, there was a lot of stuff that came out. So I'm glad I didn't go in there, a paddle a swinging or a belt a swinging, whatever. I just
Absolutely,
needed
yeah.
to engage.
Well, teenage years are hard enough anyway. They're kind of a moving mark,
Yeah.
for a young one, especially, there's, and the thing that they don't understand, and that you do as an adult have been trying to help them understand, is that who they are and what they are is going to change so many times throughout those teenage years because of all those changes. And so, he may not, like you said, I think of times with my own boys where, I'd hear them say something to their mother. I'm like, did you just,
Oh, no.
it was like, this is not going to go well for you.
Yeah.
But it's hard enough to be a young person, especially these days. I think there's a whole list of different challenges than things I ever had to worry about, in the 80s and 90s, and and all that kind of stuff. So, but
Well, they're teaching our kids to be afraid, and that bothers me greatly. I listen to some of the stuff coming out of kids out of their mouths about school and what they're teaching them. I'm not happy. They're teaching them to rely on somebody outside of themselves for safety and comfort, and I don't want my kids to feel that way, to feel like they're that defeated or that they need. Granted, we all need help from time to time, which you should be able to pick that time when you go get help and not be so desperate. Um, I took my kids to lunch one Friday, and this is rather abrupt. Uh, Took my kids to lunch one Friday. They were in separate schools, middle school. So I went to their schools, did the procedural protocol, went to their classrooms, spoke to their teachers, shook their hands before I picked them up, and asked them when they would like, them back for, class continuity, and it wasn't disturbing anything. They gave me their input, took my two children to lunch, came to bring them back, and took my oldest child to his school first, and was walking down the hallway to take my youngest daughter to her school as she walked in with me. And I was met by the principal of my son's school. I saw her eyeballing me the whole way, like way down the hallway. She's a tall lady. She's as tall as me. Okay, I'm 6'1", 6'2". She was as tall as I was. I think she was wearing flats. She's a big lady. And she just eyeballed me. She had a principal look about her. Like if I were a kid, I needed to feel like I was in trouble right then and there. I just walked up to her and I said, "Ma'am, can I help you?" And she's like, "Well, yes, you can." "Who are you?" Well, she's just starting to give me the third degree, and I let her finish her spiel. My daughter's standing right here. She's 11, 10, 11 at the time. And this is about the time, I think Sandy Hook happened, maybe.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Not long after that. And she said, "Well, we don't allow parents this and allow parents that." I let her finish. I said, "Well, while I can intellectually understand your viewpoint, I am going to have to reject and disrespect your viewpoint." I said, you have my child for 7 hours a day. And during that 7 hours, my child is focused on his or her education. And nothing should be detract from that. They should not be bothering anybody. They should not allow anybody to distract from them. But as far as me having the right to walk my child to and from his or her class, well, sorry to say, that's not your call. My kid. And this little girl right here has half of my DNA and half of her mother's DNA in her. So any direction that you give her that countermands anything that I've ever taught her about survival, being on her own or whatever, she will definitely tell you to go take a leap if you countermand anything that I tell her. I said, I understand your need for well-being, but you're not going to become a wedge between me and my child under the color of safety, which is, it's just fear. You're not going to teach my child to be fearful. My child is going to live her life. She's going to be happy every day of her life. She's going to be confident she's going to go on in her life, enjoying her life the way she wants to live without worrying about the dictates or tyrannical input from anybody such as yourself. I'm not harming anybody walking my child to class. She is not being harmed, nor is anybody else being harmed me walking my child to class. Yet you want to throw a stigma on my relationship with my child. Apparently, a relationship I don't have with any other child in here. You want to put a stigma on my relationship with everybody's child here too. I'm not going to allow that. I said, I am not going to stand here and allow my parental rights or my duty as a parent to be sloughed off onto you because you feel you want to take that mantle up. You can do it better than me. I guarantee you can't do it better than me. You don't have my child's DNA or interest at heart. You have a general blanket understanding of the children under your care. And by God, that's sufficient for me. Thank you for your time, miss. This little girl is just fine.
There
So
you
is that
go.
little boy in there.
Okay, well, let me ask you this question. So, one of the questions I like to ask every single guest that's ever been on my show, and so I'll ask it of you as well. Looking back over your life's experiences, what's the single greatest lesson that you take with you on a day-to-day basis?
Be kind. Always be kind. Uh, each greeting with a smile. Be kind to every human soul that you can, because you never know. You never know what you're doing for that person that day just by smiling at them, just by offering them a handshake. As a matter of fact, I hug total strangers all the time. Total strangers. I've always often asked myself, what am I going to do if I ever get big enough to have paparazzi around this? I don't know, but more than likely, I'll probably give them a hug. Just pretty disarming, giving a person a hug. But I really am in this for humanity. I had an epiphany about acting and how I could impact the world in a positive way. I want to tell stories, and I want to raise the vibration of everybody I come in contact with. And I want to lower their vibration. I want to add riches to somebody's life. I don't want to take them.
I like it.
So if I can add riches to somebody's life, I want to do it by being kind.
Okay. And one more follow-up question. In relation to that first question, what's the single greatest piece of advice that you have ever been given?
Oh my gosh. Wow, I've had so much good advice. You're asking me to dig through silver to find platinum. I mean, I've had so much.
Well, share one of the
I've
pieces
had
of
so.
silver.
Okay, I want to share a piece of platinum. I gotta. Well, I don't know. I think I could attribute this to somebody in my past. Um, but I think I've adopted it and let my own thinking take it over. Just that I've survived everything thus far. There's no reason you can't survive this situation now. Seriously, doesn't matter how dark or grim or terrible it is, or how hopeless the situation may seem. You may be getting ready to get evicted that day, and sheriffs are on their way. And, they're right outside the door, rolling up, and they're getting ready to pull your stuff out, just throw you out on the street. Man, you're still breathing. You still got an opportunity to make a positive change in somebody's life. So that being said, I think the greatest piece of advice I ever got was, well, in this moment, because there's lots I've gotten, is that doesn't matter how dark and dreary and how badly you messed up, you have the opportunity to start over every second of every day. So taking that opportunity and making most of it every day, and then recognizing those opportunities for what they are. I think that's the hard part. We get down on ourselves when we screw up, especially when we let our own expectations down. And we can't hold on to that stuff. We just got to keep rolling. Look at it, acknowledge it for what it is, stock it away, take your notes, apply it next time. But yeah, I guess never give up, never surrender, never say die. I can't. It's just I can't do it.
That's good. I like that. All right. So, Will, tell the folks who are listening, what where can they find a little bit more information about Wil Wilson and the movies that he's been in and is going to be in, perhaps.
Okay, well, I have an IMDb Pro page. Um, the page is Will with one L, Wil Wilson. That's my name, and I am currently in the middle of updating that page. I've got to add some credits and some classes and whatnot to it. But I have several movies are in post production. I should say several. A couple of movies are in post production. One of them's All Terrain. The other one's Low Car's Principal. Actually, Low Car's Principal is still filming, I believe. Jake Richardson's director of that, and he is Joe Mackey's one of the stars. Philip Haas is one of the stars. But he's been shooting that for like 8 years now, 8 years, long time. So I guess that'll hit post production one day. Jake texted me a few months ago and said he has another scene for me, and I'm like, okay, well, whatever. I've got to shave this beard sometime. But then there's I was on an episode of The Price of Fame, the Eddie Murphy story, episode 309. I think it's season 3, episode 9, playing Walter Hill. All Terrain, an sci-fi action adventure flick. Awesome. It's set for a Pacific Rim. It was set for a Pacific Rim release this fall, but COVID hit, so I think it backed everything up by at least 12 months, maybe even 18 more months. So I don't know when All Terrain will be out, but it's got a phenomenal story and script to it. Also have Out of Exile coming out. Out of Exile is going to have a premiere probably March, maybe, in Oklahoma, soft opening, and then we're going to get a full-on premiere at some point in the fall, probably next year. Second Chances is shooting now. It's a great story about a young lady that discovers a letter, and the letter was written by a lover that trying to explain her situation as they were breaking up. And so this character has a father who's very inspiring to her. He's wise to her. He's kind. They're really good buds, more than father and daughter. And he imparts some wisdom to her and keeps her inspired and going, kind of like a hippie family, And so she's trying to reunite these two to see if they can reconcile because of the content of this letter that the other person never got to see. So it's a really great premise for a story. I think it beats anything that Lifetime Network has out there. But it's got some great Oklahoma talent.
Awesome.
As well.
All right. Well, guys, there it is. Make sure you swing over to the IMDb page, check out Wil Wilson and some of his upcoming works. And Will, thank you so much for being on today. I've really enjoyed Well, your frankness of conversation, your openness, it's you've been a joy to talk to.
Well, I really appreciate it, Tim. I love the opportunity, and I enjoyed, I guess, spilling my guts to you. I had
Well,
fun.
well, we're glad to have had you and had a chance to spill with you. So excellent. All right, guys, thank you for listening so much to another edition of Focused on Forward. Well, that concludes another episode of Focused on Forward. To be a guest of Focused on Forward, you can reach us through Twitter at podcastfof, through our Facebook page named Focused on Forward, or through email focusedonforward@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing each and every one of your stories that has yet to be told. So until then, be safe, be kind, and be loving to one another as you stay focused on forward.